sentiment will catch up, inflation will rise. So it's going to be a big task for them to manage both.
Actually, yes. So I think, what's your feeling like? Will they pause or?
No, it'll be a pause for sure. But the only thing is the post, meeting statements are crucial. If they still say that we will not hesitate to increase if we see inflation rising,
That's
then that could be considered as hawkish.
Awesome. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt. Just like I want to keep this momentum going as well. Sorry to interrupt. Rishi sir, is it possible for you to please switch on your video? Yeah. We are being live streamed on YouTube as well. So man, there are a few more people joined there as well. So glad to be back here with actually another commodities webinar. We are happy that the traction that's going on Dhan for the commodities and it's being shown is being very promising. And we know that the commodities like AMA from top experts like you, Tyagarajan sir, Rishi sir, and along with Jay sir's massive knowledge in it, really helps a lot of users to get their all doubts answered. So let's begin. Firstly, welcome everyone. This is Rahul and I'm part of the growth team at Dhan. Thank you for taking out your time and joining us for today's webinar. We have this is I have lost the count of the series actually, but we are going to keep this the whole webinar happening every week, preferably because a lot of things are being happening on the crude oil and natural gas front, and getting top experts like you really help in it. To just give a brief introduction, Jai Gupta sir. Jai Gupta, our very own founder. He's an IIM Ahmedabad graduate and has an extensive experience in commodities, equities, and currency market. He is the co-founder and CEO of Dhan. Jai has been in the securities market for over 18 years and led the digital broking initiatives at India Bulls Carby, after which he was the founder and CEO of Money Securities. Coming to Rishi sir. Rishi sir is the chief business officer at MCX. He's a commerce graduate, a certified financial planner, and an alumni of IIM Kozhikode. He has over 25 years of rich and diverse experience across the financial services domain, from equity, commodity, currency, and insurance broking, financial planning, and much more. And coming back to Gyan Shekhar sir, Mr. Gyan Shekhar Tyagarajan is a veteran in the commodity markets. He has been tracking commodity markets and working with organizations exposed to commodity price risk much before the advent of MCX. Sir's views are much sought after. He has been featured as an expert market commentator on television, print, and electronic media. Very warm welcome to you. Jai sir, you can please take over now.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rahul, for all the kind words. So Rishi, can you switch on your video, please, if you're fine? Yeah. So thanks Rishi, and thanks Gyan Shekhar for making this. So we'll try to keep our communication mode in English, thoda Hindi, thoda English, so that it reaches to our wider audience. देखिए आज इम्पोर्टेंट डे है. कल हम लोगों ने इन्फ्लेशन का नंबर्स देखा, विच इज़ एट 4% इन यूएस. 4.1% का एक्सपेक्टेशन था. So all eyes are on tonight's Fed outcome, whether they are going to increase the interest rate, they are going to give a pause, what is the stance they are going to take is going to be $1 million question. And I believe all financial market participants across the world, across asset classes, not only commodities but equities, currency, bonds, everybody will be glued to their televisions or any mode of communication to listen what the Fed has to say at 11:30 p.m. tonight. So उससे पहले बहुत कुछ एक्शन है. And by the way, like to congratulate Rishi for yet another record turnover which they did yesterday on exchanges. So MCX is growing many-fold. In the last 1 year we have seen them coming up with products, bringing new innovations, and growing in multiple times, I believe, right? So before we start taking Q&A, which is a usual format, I would hand over this discussion to Tyagarajan so that he can share his thoughts. What's expected? ये last 15 days में क्या क्या हुआ है commodities market में? There's a lot of things which has happened. China में slow down है. China has decided to cut rates. Global growth is not picking up. उसके बीच में inflation numbers अच्छा आया है, which is a respite. And on top of that, as I was saying, the Fed ka jo decision hai, that will also be crucial. So over to you, sir, with your thoughts. How do you see commodities market in this amidst all this, news flows, or especially energy side में क्या लग रहा है? Because now थोड़ा सा slow down का fear अगर कम होगा, तो how do you see crude oil prices, natural prices behaving in coming days?
Thank you, Jay, and thanks, Rishi. Congratulations again on this landmark achievement. I think more to come, I'm sure. When you look at commodity markets and as a whole, if you sort of divide it into agri and non-agri, both are going through a very critical phase at this point in time. On one side, especially the non-agri side, you have key external factors like the FOMC decision, and some of the fundamentals are not that comfortable even now. And the weakness is very clear, with the way China is underperforming. और यूरोप में बहुत सारे economies already recession में चला गया officially. There is nothing unofficial about it anymore. Germany has officially got into a recession, and their numbers have contracted so much. And it's natural क्योंकि वहाँ पे अभी भी tense situation चल रहा है यूक्रेन और रशिया के वजह से. And that impact is natural and understandable as far as the situation goes there. तो एक macro economy में अभी भी weakness जारी है, and that could continue to put macro pressure, meaning any upsides which you might see temporarily on the back of possibly affect the passing rates or any other positive news that can result in some risk on sentiment will be short-lived. टिकेगा नहीं. It will have a very minimal impact and will have short-lived period. For example, if you look at crude oil prices, the way OPEC has cut production twice in the last 2-3 months, it has not made an impact at all. But what it has done is to put a floor on prices, because OPEC as a body, we should understand that it is there only to arrest the volatility. And if it gets out of hand, they all join together, come up with some kind of a decision to prop up prices. That is basically what is the role of OPEC. And they know the threat at this point in time. The threat is a huge, macro environment which is negative. Demand is just not seen from even the biggest player, China. It's very gradually picking up there. Because they've just recovered from COVID and the economy is going to take some time. And China being the largest user of many of these commodities, and they've had this tendency of not just buying for consumption, they buy for reserves also. So that is the reason why the market is looking towards China for direction. But unfortunately, अभी तक वहाँ से the signals ठीक नहीं है. मतलब the economic numbers that are coming out are just not good at all to confirm that there is a recovery or a reversal in trend as far as commodities cycle is concerned. So we are in a cycle which is bullish, but within that uptrend, you are going to see these kind of negative downturns, and we are going through that downturn right now. So the non-agri commodity basket is clearly suffering from this demand weakness, which includes base metals, different kinds of base metals, copper being the benchmark, then aluminium, zinc, nickel, lead, all of them across the board have suffered. Prices देखेंगे तो you'll be able to clearly understand. Some of them have fallen by at least 60-70%, some of them 30%. So there's been a very drastic fall in metals. And energy is even worse, from $130 odd to around $67-70, roughly 100%. Is a fall in energy prices. This fall has clearly indicated that inflation is tapering. That's for sure. Basically, these are the commodities which resulted in inflation rising higher. And natural gas, look at natural gas. That's also roughly come down by more than 100%. So all this indicates that inflation is clearly coming down, and that gives the comfort factor for the Fed to pause rates at this point in time. Lekin abhi bhi, with the yesterday's inflation data, it is very clear that they are not going to, you know, keep away their watch. They're going to be very closely watching, because it's the inflation rate is, even at the present levels, is nowhere close to what they wish it would come down to, because their target is somewhere close to 2.5%. But for that, I think I think most analysts across the world, or most market participants across the world, have sort of understood that this 2.25 is going to be very, very difficult unless prices of commodities start crashing from present levels. That's not going to happen, because most of these non-agri commodities are near a potential bottom. So when I say non-agri commodities, I'm excluding gold and silver specifically. I'm only talking about metals, base metals, and energy prices, which includes crude and natural gas. So that's the sort of a dilemma we're in right now. Federal Reserve as a central bank has to manage this situation very smartly. Unfortunately, they are involved in funding a proxy war in Russia. And just now they got over the debt ceiling issue for the time being. In fact, it's been postponed till 2025. So that's one big challenge which they had to overcome, which they have done so far. But the bigger challenge will be now to ensure there is growth, as well as it doesn't get out of hand and inflation starts rising again. So that is a key challenge for Fed going forward. So it's like walking on a tight rope. Whichever way they tend to give the direction for the market, you will have trouble both ways. If they get overly bullish about growth and they let markets take over, then you'll again see commodity prices rising, resulting in more inflation. Again, they will get into sort of a tightening mode after some time. But on the contrary, if they continue tightening the way they're tightening, it's definitely going to result in a lot of problems. Because especially in the US, the housing market is the biggest market which is suffering because of these high interest rates, both the commercial and residential. If they continue this, we will see more of these bank defaults which we have seen in the past. So that Fed is painfully aware. Isliye, they have to sort of play a game where they have to allow this to happen, growth to happen, at the same time keep the controls very tight. Every now and then they might come and guide the market that they'll not hesitate to raise rates in the future if inflation rises. So that's how I think they'll play it out in the coming quarters. But the key is the way Europe has gone into recession, the way China is not picking up, and many Asian economies are still suffering. Fed is painfully aware of this. So they will get into a pause mode for sure. There is no doubt about it. I don't think they will hike rates. For at least a quarter, they will see how it behaves. And then probably in September, they might take a call either to again get into a tightening mode, or they could further keep decreasing rates. So either ways, this situation is not going to be, or rather going to be very positive for base metals, very positive for energy markets, and mildly positive for gold and silver, because when you signal a pause, which means that interest rate advantage is going to play out for gold and silver in a bullish way. But I think it will be a very limited upside as of now. Lekin geopolitics को भी consider करना पड़ेगा यहाँ पे, because the way this Ukraine conflict is escalating. Today we saw a buildup of NATO forces in a big way in Germany, signaling that they're ready for a counter-offensive. They could join forces with Ukraine directly. So far, it's been a proxy war, so it could get into a direct escalation. And again, Putin is threatening about the grain deal, which he's talking about. So all this makes me feel that we're getting into a very uncertain period going forward. It's not going to be a period of certainty or stability. Volatility will continue to, increase, and specifically in the area of agri commodities, because many of these agri commodities have also suffered a lot, uh, post the both pre and post the Russian invasion. And this Green Deal is something which is constantly keeping them on the hook. Um, so, and add to that, you have weather, which is going to play a key role now, because the Kharif season has started. India is desperately looking for normal monsoons for the Kharif crops to come about. But there are El Nino predictions, which are very strong, and we're already seeing this happening globally. Because when El Nino happens, you have excessive or unseasonal rains in US, South America, and you have dryness in India and other parts of Asia. So, the monsoon missing on time itself is a very clear indication that El Nino is in play. And if this monsoon weakness continues till July, because that's where the planting will become the planting will increase at that time, then we're in for trouble. The local Indian inflation is going to drastically rise because of it. So the weather issues are very critical at this point in time. So agri markets will be very, very closely watching the weather developments. So to sum it up, I think the non-agri markets are focused on the external issues like the Fed interest rate and the growth issues, demand issues, and the agri markets are going to be focusing on the supply side risks based on weather. So these are the two key things which I'll be watching very closely. And as if I have to look at any specific commodities or any specific areas which could potentially give an opportunity, my feeling is base metals, because many of them have fallen quite drastically, and China is in a recovery mode now. Just a couple of days back, China made stimulus DIY. They clearly understand the growth weakness that's happening, and China is now coming up with a stimulus. While the whole world is in a tightening mode, China's giving more stimulus. That clearly says that they will increase growth prospects as we go ahead, and that's going to be very supportive for base metals, steel, because they're giving a lot of incentives in the real estate sector, which was suffering so far. I'm extremely bullish on metals at these levels because they're at the lows. So with that, back to you, Jay.
Yeah, thanks, Gyanshekar. Lot of data, lot of insights. Thanks. It all comes with your experience. But just one thing I'd like to add. See, I've been in this industry for almost 17, 18 years. Right, so the kind of awareness about commodities ये मैंने last जो 2 साल में देखा है, इससे पहले नहीं देखा था. Both asset classes were treated as a separate asset classes, but thanks to all things happening in Ukraine, US का recession, China, now कोई एक equity trader भी है, they have also started understanding the importance of trading or tracking commodities. So that's really helping a lot. So उस मामले में exchange has also done a great job. They have come up with products, smaller contracts, options on crude oil, natural gas, which are a big hit. And this is also helping any newcomer जो equities में trade करता है, F&O trade करता है, and they want to also try to hedge, learn about commodities. It's really helping them. So my question to Rishi is, how do you see the trend? इतना जो jump हो रहा है, is the participation coming only from retail, new age, or newbies, or या फिर institutions, SMEs भी participate इसमें कर रहे हैं in the option volumes?
Thanks, Jay. Pleasure to be here again every fortnight. First of all, disclaimer that since I'm from the exchange, I'd like to clarify that exchange is not associated with any price views or any directions. Anything that you want to trade or you hear, please check with your registered investment advisor before acting on it. Now to answer your question, it is very true that we are seeing more and more people getting attached to the commodities markets and being aware of commodities markets. जैसा आपने सही कहा कि इक्विटी में भी जो इन्वेस्ट करते हैं कमोडिटीज को बेस लगते हुए अगर इक्विटी में इन्वेस्ट करेंगे तो उनका इक्विटी का भी इन्वेस्टमेंट जर्नी थोड़ा बेटर होगा. तो कमोडिटीज में लोगों का बहुत अच्छा रुझान आ रहा है, इंटरेस्ट बढ़ रहा है और हम ये देख रहे हैं कि जो इंटरेस्ट है सब तरीके से है. एफपीआई वॉल्यूम भी बढ़ रहा है. कल हमारा नया हाई हुआ था एफपीआई वॉल्यूम का भी, लगभग 3,000 करोड़ सिंगल साइड एफपीआई वॉल्यूम भी हुआ. ऑप्शंस में कल ऑल टाइम हाई हुआ था, क्रूड में भी एंड ओवरऑल ऑप्शंस में भी. एंड हर हर महीने दर महीने हम यही देख रहे हैं कि वॉल्यूम्स बढ़ते जा रहे हैं. मोर एंड मोर पीपल आर पार्टिसिपेटिंग, वेदर इट्स hedgers, whether it's retail, whether it's proprietary trading, whether it's FPIs. So we are seeing an all-round institutional participation, all-round participation across the board. And I would really credit it to the efforts being made by the not only the exchange but people like Gyan Shekhar and you, and the efforts all the market participants are making to spread more and more awareness about commodities. So I think that's the main thing. Commodities are an integral part of our life. It is the basis of any economy, and that is why commodities trade more than equities worldwide. It's in India, it's been slightly due to historical reasons quite late in the day, but I'm sure we're catching up very fast.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. So I think there'll be a lot of questions. So I'll hand over it to Rahul so we can take up questions. Rahul.
Yes, yes, sir. I'll just narrate it here. I hope I am like quite audible. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So starting with the first question, actually, sir, we have received this on our YouTube. Like as we were discussing on the natural gas front and everything. Please, can you please tell why there is so much sideways days are now in the market right now?
So over to you, Gyan Shekhar. You can throw some light on that.
So this is specific to natural gas or other commodities
No,
also?
in general, sir.
Natural gas, like I said earlier, the way it has fallen from the peaks, basically this strength came into natural gas because of these logistical issues that happened a year and a half back. And suddenly there was absolute shortage of gas because the transportation issues were happening, COVID, post-COVID. But after that, also the winter to some extent. Abhi, वो सब खत्म हो गया. We've seen all that completely reversing, and we are languishing near the lows. If I could show the chart, I'll be able to explain better. But just to give you an understanding, we are at almost a 5-year kind of a low, and we are close to long-term supports as far as prices are concerned, natural gas. Because of that, selling is not seen because prices are at long-term levels. There is some industry buying to some extent. At the same time, weather in the US is becoming more drier. And both, when you have dry weather as well as when you have cold weather, natural gas comes into play because, you tend to use natural gas to either for air conditioning or for heaters. Both ways, natural gas is used. So there's an expectation that summer demand will pick up, but that's not happening because there have been rains. There's no clear direction there. इसलिए एक range-bound trade दिख रहा है, especially in the energy markets. And as a whole, there is, range-bound sort of a market simply because there are no positive factors as well as negative factors, because already you've seen in lot of negativities over the last 6 months to 9 months, and therefore that's
I think Anshika, there's some network issue at your end. So
At the same time, the upside is also limited. क्योंकि इतना ज़्यादा upside नहीं आएगा simply because of the globally.
I think sir is facing some internet issues.
yeah, Rahul, by the time it gets fixed, I think we can take up the next question. Something
Yes,
on
yes.
the chat for Rishi, I think MCX.
Sure. We are actually getting some questions on the natural gas front only. So few users, Rishi sir, are actually asking, are there any plans to actually launch natural gas micro futures contract?
Well, we recently launched mini contracts. So I don't know why your micro will be required because the mini is already quite small. So I think it's good enough for the market as of now. And going forward, if we feel a need, we'll look at it.
Okay. Thanks, Rishi sir. So one more actually question was that like it's related to commodities in general. So please free to like take this up. It's actually around El Nino, the El Nino effect that's going to come around. How is it going to affect the commodities market in general and commodities trading? Like how should the user basically take into consideration the El Nino effect and like play strategies?
That's for me.
Yeah, it's for you.
First of all, El Nino is a phenomenon where you will have dryness in South America and US, whereas you will have excessive or unseasonal rains in South America and US, and there will be dryness in Asia and Australia. अब अभी देखेंगे तो already there is a problem as far as cotton is concerned because planting शुरू हुआ है in places like Gujarat and places like Punjab, but rains have not come abundantly. It's not enough to help in planting at this point in time, and the monsoons which were supposed to begin in Kerala, which is already delayed, and whatever has started is a very weak monsoon that has begun. This new cyclone which has come in the Gujarat coast, which might affect the monsoon. So these are all signs of a much bigger problem that can happen during this Kharif planting season. So the Kharif planting season will be oil seeds, pulses, cotton. So all of them are going to be negatively or positively impacted as far as the prices are concerned. And the sum and substance is that it will result in inflation as far as the Indian markets are concerned. So, the last RBI policy was very comfortable with the inflation and the way it has come down. But that will not be the case going forward. Even the MPC, they have very clearly indicated El Nino as a threat. So it's very, very important, and you should understand the different commodities that come under Kharif crops. And this is a time, this quarter from here up to September, is a very key time for many of these commodities. And no one with a sane mind will ever go short on these commodities at this point in time. I'm not giving a price direction, but this is the trend among industry, among market participants. When you have a weather risk and especially a confirmed El Nino threat, many of these market participants will be afraid to be on the short side.
Okay, thanks, sir. We have one more question. Actually, it's a while ago. Gyanshankar sir, as you mentioned, right, the recession has already been declared in few of the countries, and especially in Germany. The user actually is asking if the recession is on the horizon, is commodities actually a good choice? And if any, are there any particular commodities that one might keep an eye on?
Jay, you want to take it?
I'll add some. I think your expert opinion would be really helpful.
Yeah. Though Europe has got into a recession officially, there are also signs that other economies in Europe is getting out of it. For example, UK. अभी मैंने एक data देखा है. that says that the UK economy is rebounding now. It's showing a very positive increase as far as growth rates are concerned. So there are mixed signs as far as Europe is concerned. Yes, the biggest economy there, Germany, has gotten into a contraction. Lekin, with it all depends on how this war is going to escalate. If it continues to escalate, then we are in trouble again. Then we have to re-evaluate all the all the forecasts that we have, and and get into a more negative mode. But right now, there are lots of signs that these economies are gradually rebounding back. They're showing some traction. So इसीलिए मेरा मानना है कि the data is important now. From now up to another 2-3 months are very critical for many of these commodities. And yes, it is in recession. There is no doubt about it. But it's also in a rebounding phase. So when that rebound is happening, we shouldn't jump into conclusions and get into too much of forecast on either side. Jay,
Yeah. So rightly said, so few things also needs to be watched is when there is recession, all the recessions or recessionary like situation which has global impact usually starts in US, right? Eurozone is already a slowing continent. So सारा action US में ही होता है. अगर US में यहाँ पे slow down होता है, so there are two factors which you need to watch. One is dollar is going to weaken, so उसके कारण other emerging market currency will start getting stronger. And there are signs of it. The way Indian economy is performing, if US dollar really collapses, it will give a lot of tailwind to USD INR. That's one area you can look at. Usually जब भी recession होता है, slowdown होता है, the only complex which gets most attention is bullion. So you may see newer highs getting made in gold and silver. But timing is very important. अगर आप एकदम peak पे खरीदते हो, where people got stuck in silver in 2011-12 when they bought at 70,000 and they almost had to wait for 10 years to get their rate back. So timing is very important where the role of your analysis comes. But broadly अगर inflation आता है जो base metals, energy usually starts to correct because global growth नहीं है तो उसमें slowdown आ जाएगा. And gold and silver being a hedge against any kind of slowdown, so that starts going up. So you need to keep eyes on that.
Thank you, sir. Adding on to this particular question, actually, Jay sir and Tyagarajan sir, you have like vast experience of all the knowledge in the commodities and can connect the dots easily. But for a newbie trader, it becomes a little overwhelming to research on a lot of factors because commodities especially is very much interlinked with all the world affairs that is happening, and about a certain particular regulation policy in a certain country might affect a price in certain different country. To keep a tab on this, can you please shed a light like how a user or how a trader who is just starting into commodities can keep a track? Though there is one suggestion that like starting from our webinar he can start with because we already shared a lot of updates on it. But like on the day-to-day basis, Tyagarajan, that would be really helpful if you shared some light.
Jay, why don't you start? Then I'll add to it.
So I'll rather ask Rishi because he has got immense experience and also being on the exchange side. So Rishi, would like to share your thoughts. एक beginner को कहाँ से शुरू करना चाहिए? We have abundance of data, right? So
beginner means he has to start from the beginning, right? So the beginning is knowledge. Unless you have knowledge, there is no point in doing anything. Even when you start, come on the road, you need to know how to cross the road. Even if you're walking on the road, you need to know how to cross the road. So when you're small children in school, also you're taught that first look left, then look right, then look left, then cross the road. So, everything is one step at a time. So similarly, when you enter any financial market, you need to understand what this market is, how to approach it, how to navigate it. Everything may seem difficult. It may seem like rocket science in the beginning, but once you've mastered anything, then it seems very easy or second nature. You've seen people, when they start driving, they're so inconfident. Once they get the hang of it, then it's very smooth and becomes like second nature. Similarly, once you start understanding the markets, then you can benefit from these markets. So all you need to do first is invest your time, then invest your money. Don't do it vice versa. Otherwise, you will have to invest a lot of money, which will go away, and then you'll have to waste a lot of time trying to think what you did. However, if you first invest your time and then you put in your money, then you will realize that yes, it was time well spent, because then the money will start earning returns for you. So, invest you know invest time first and then money. And especially for commodity markets, my suggestions would be that it's relatively easier to trade commodities than equities, for the simple reason that with equities you need to do economy, like if you're a fundamental analyst, you need to do economy research, then industry research, then company research, and then on. And there are thousands of companies. In commodities, or you need to do a broad based global macroeconomic analysis, and maybe your country economic analysis. And there's so much data available on commodities globally. It's not specific to any country or a region. Most commodities are global. So there's so much global data available, so many resources in today's day and age of the internet. There's so many resources available. And because these are global commodities, it's very difficult for any vested interest to you know move the prices to the extent that could be done maybe in a single stock. So having, in that sense, it is much more democratic, much more transparent, so you can understand about commodities. And some commodities are inherent to Indians, such as gold and silver. So you can understand a lot about commodities, how to invest in them, how to trade in them. Some commodities are for investment, long-term investment. Some commodities are for trading. So depending on what you want, some are for hedging. So depending on what your requirement is, you can understand these markets and start. Now, how to start? Start small. When I say start small, either start by buying call or put options depending on your view, or and don't put all your money into one option. Just keep your money for a lot of trades, so that you put maybe 5%, 10% of your money in one trade. Maybe that's also too much, maybe much lesser. And then once you get the experience, then go ahead and increase, and then come to graduate to futures. Even then, start with the mini contracts or the smaller contracts. Once you get experience and confidence, then go for the larger contracts. So it's a step by step approach. Rome wasn't built in a day. uh, Neither will your portfolio be built in a day. All you need to have is knowledge and patience, and the ability to navigate these markets. Like when you are on the sea, sometimes the sky is clear, the water is calm, then it's easy to ride. When the seas are stormy, then it is best to huddle and keep quiet, and ride out the storm. So similarly, in markets, you need to know when to trade, when not to trade, when to take a long position, when to take a short position, and accordingly navigate these markets. And you'll get all that with knowledge, time, and experience. So gain all that, and I'm sure your journey will be rewarding.
Yeah, so very well put, Rishi. So nothing to add there. Just one point is, see, when you start, you are often confused, right? So you find that the whole world is doing F&O, and you don't want to sound, odd one out, and why you will start doing commodities or currency, and vice versa. Right. So the one way of starting, I feel, is say when you don't have knowledge on any of the asset classes, be it equities, commodities, or currency. One way to start is allocate some kind of risk capital to each of the segments, and start small, as you rightly said, Rishi, and see where your comfort and where your strength lies. It's not always necessary that you can be a successful trader. There are people who are born with innate qualities of being an investor, and there are people who can be smart traders, but they cannot be investors because of their patience level and the behavior. So once you trade in different asset classes with a minimum risk capital which you afford to lose, you start getting a hang of it, and start understanding where your strength lies and then double down where your strength is. And gradually, as Rishi mentioned, knowledge, experience, when to stop trading, when to jump and do over trades, that all comes naturally with experience. But it's important to understand where your strength is.
Let me just add to that. In fact, Rishi has given some wonderful insights. Because most investors I see or I come across have all the problems that he's talked about. So I think he summed up very, very well on what is needed for an investor and what he should look at. See, the thing is, when I started, there wasn't, talking about 2 decades back, there was hardly any programs, anything on the internet to look at and learn. So I was left with only one option where I was forced to track the prices very closely. Because when, as a new investor, if you're overwhelmed with what's happening, the different factors that influence the market, my only advice is, start looking at the price very closely over a period of time. Not that you will immediately start getting a hang of it. It will take some time, but eventually what will happen is over a period of time, when you start watching the price and start questioning why it went up and went down on a daily basis or on a regular basis, you will start understanding the factors that influence the price, especially commodities. And commodities are very seasonal in nature. So it's easier to sort of, I wouldn't say easier, but relative to other asset classes, commodity is far relatively better to forecast and to get some idea because of the seasonal nature. But looking at the price and questioning why the price went up and went down will give you a fantastic idea in the beginning stage, and you will get to know most of these factors that influence the price over time.
Thank you everyone. It's actually very helpful. We are getting some really positive comments about this. Like coming back to on the for the questions related to the ones who are just getting started into the commodities trading, can you please like explain in a very understandable way what's the how important is the leverage and margin in commodity trading, and how they can actually impact the beginner's trading strategy and journey?
So should I?
Yeah, please.
So leverage is okay, let me explain it like this. Leverage is like a sword. It can cut both ways. It can help you achieve your goals, or it can make you cut yourself also. So you need to know how to handle it. Leverage in some ways can help you achieve much more with your capital than you normally would. On the other hand, it can help you lose your capital also faster than you normally would if you didn't use leverage, if you are not careful. So whenever you use leverage, you need to know how to use it. Like when you wield a sword, you need to know how to wield it. Otherwise, you'll end up cutting yourself or injuring someone else you didn't intend to. Similarly, when you start using leverage, you need to understand what leverage is, how leverage works, and what are the advantages and disadvantages. The advantage of leverage is that, for example, you have a capital of 10,000 and you say pay a 10% margin and do a trade. That means you can take a trade of 1 lakh rupees. Naturally, if the stock, the commodity, what you're trading in goes up by 5% or goes down by 5%, you will, and if you're long in it, you will either gain or lose 5,000 rupees. Had you done it on your initial capital of 10,000, you would have lost or gained 500 rupees. So your journey for growth will also increase, but your losses may also increase. So you need to understand that leverage, if used well, can help you magnify your returns. If not used well, it can help you diminish your returns at a very fast pace. So understanding leverage is very important. How to handle it? The best way to handle, as I said earlier also, is through options, because options will give you the kind of leverage which only gives you the upside, but not the downside. Once you start understanding that, then go to futures, because futures will give you both upside and downside.
Fantastic. I just add to that if you don't mind, please.
Yeah, please.
See, the problem with leverage is most of these investors, especially the retail crowd, goes by a lot of these trading calls that are given by different players, and at some point in time they start judging the calls rather than actually acting on genuine research content, and that's where the leverage problem comes in, because if somebody gets it right for 3 times or 4 times out of 5, then your confidence increases and then you leverage more. But I mean, these are common mistakes which happen in trading. We've made all these mistakes, and eventually, a disciplined system in trading is very, very important. In fact, it reminds me of a shloka in Bhagavad Gita, if you don't mind me just saying that. It's Samatvam Yoga Uchyate in just three words, which means that you need to be the same both in profits and losses. The problem is when you get carried away by the success, then you tend to over leverage at some point in time. But you need to take both success and failure on the same path or on the same position. Only then you will be able to successfully trade over time. And also these losses which might happen from time to time because of this volatile moves, you need to get into this habit of adhering to stop losses when you're trading in futures. And like Rishi said, options is the best as far as investors are concerned, because the downside is limited and there is potentially very high upside in any commodity. So clearly, a risk-averse investor or somebody with very risk appetite should go through the options route and then get into futures rather than doing the other way. And the leverage, clearly one should have a certain leverage and maintain that irrespective of how successful or how bad the trades have been over time. For example, any investor who comes to me asking for these kind of advice, I tell them that 6 months stick to the same leverage, irrespective of how successful your trading has been. So do not over leverage. Just maintain that and then review it after 6 months, whether you want to increase it or not. So that's the way to go about. Yes, good. Jay.
Yeah, Rahul, you can take next question.
Thanks, sir. Adding on to this question only, right? Like, as far as you mentioned, like options are the best instruments one retail investors can try out with. We also wanted to check upon like how many risks are associated with commodity tradings in general, and how to are there any particular risk management strategies you can suggest which will mitigate the risk overall for all the traders?
So Rishi, you want to go on this?
Yeah, I think we should go with that.
Sorry. Can you just repeat the question?
Yes, sir. So, sir, can you please shed some light on, are there any particular risk management strategies that a trader can use to basically mitigate their risk as they are beginning in their commodities trading journey?
So your biggest friend, as they say in the market, is the trend. But in terms of risk management, the biggest friend is your stop loss. So if you always work with a stop loss, your losses are limited. And that is the biggest risk management strategy, working with a stop loss. And, overnight, somehow, some days you may or may not be able to, mostly when you're not able to contain the overnight, volatility. So it's always best to either remain hedged or, square up your positions if you're anticipating some major announcement or something. Of course, black swan events, no one can handle or predict. But if there are some major announcements or some decisions going to come, don't try to, play on news. Try to focus on fundamentals, try to focus on your study, analysis, your conviction, and then trade, and use a predetermined stop loss, and don't keep shifting your stop loss according to your whims. Discipline is another key aspect of managing your losses. If you're disciplined, you will always land up, maybe you will lose in 6 or 7 trades, but in your 3 trades, you'll make up more than what you lost in your 6 or 7 trades. If you are disciplined, because normally you should, in any trading, and this is my understanding from my earlier days as a trader, that your risk reward ratio should be 1:2 for every trade. So if you are willing to lose 1 rupee, you should be squaring up your trade and a profit for at least 2 rupees gain. So in that sense, if you lose in some trades, but in some trades you will make much more than that, and end of the day you will end up making more. So discipline, stop loss, all these definitely help.
Yeah, just I'd like to add here, see, based on our experiences, what we have seen is when you start getting right trades, right? So the biggest problem is any user becomes complacent, और वो ऐसा ट्रेड करता है just for the sake of trading. So once you get used to कि मुझे every day I have to trade, you just enter into one trade and you don't know why you have entered into that. So and you usually don't put stop losses, neither you are aware of the target. So those kind of traps you need to avoid, and that's the biggest risk. So you would be howsoever disciplined you are, one entry where you are not sure why you have taken that trade can disrupt you mentally. So take care of that. It's not necessary that every day has to be a trading day, right? Unless you understand the trend, unless you are confident that this is my risk reward ratio in every trade, it's better that you keep a mind on that and be mindful of entering any trade before you want to.
Just one thing, Jay, if you allow me to
Sure.
just add to, like Rishi said, 1:2 is a ratio which you generally conventionally look at. But even if you do 1:1.5, you will still end up in a profit over a period of time. Even if there are stop losses that are triggered, even 48% of the times you are getting it wrong, and only 51% of the times you're right, and you still stick to 1:1.5, you will end up with a very healthy return at the end of the month. So this is something which we have seen, and I have the numbers. I can run it by you sometime later. If discipline is there, and if you're willing to accept that there is a stop loss which will happen because of the volatile movement, see, unfortunately, commodity markets are not like equity markets where you get a trade wrong during the day. You simply, forget about it and put it in the locker. It will appreciate by itself over a period of time. That doesn't work like that here. You need to be very, very cautious about the trades you undertake. And stop loss is one important thing. In fact, it is something like a donation which you're giving to the market. See, you cannot be winning all the time and taking market money from the market. Somewhere you need to pay a donation to the market. So that's where stop losses come in. So that's the analogy which I tend to use most of the times.
Just for the sake of time, Rahul, will take one last question. And just before that, see, we are doing this webinar, we are trying to create a knowledge base, and we are also trying to create a lot of features and all on Dhan. So any user who has any input to share, feel free to reach out to us. We'll try to incorporate whatever suggestions you have. What our whole endeavor is that we want to give you the best features, the best possible, nudges which you can use, insights for your trading and become a successful trader or investor. So Rahul, we can take one last question.
Yeah.
And
actually, Jay sir, all the questions have been answered, sir.
Okay.
I actually clubbed few of the questions also in the interest of time, and I'm really glad that you all summed up very nicely the whole questionnaires and everything. So thanks, Rishi sir. Thanks, Tyagarajan sir, for taking out your time. Thanks, Jay sir.
Thank you.
Yeah. So before we end the session, it's a little surprise for everyone. We have actually enabled cover orders and bracket orders for commodities and currency on our Dhan web, which and this is kind of a pre-announcement which we are doing for all the community members and our participants of this webinar. Apart from that, we have a dedicated commodity trading dashboard and regularly provide news from domestic and global commodities market so as to keep you on loop. And apart from that, on our trading view chart, there are 100 plus pre-built indicators which you can apply and trade seamlessly. Thanks once again, Rishi sir. Thanks, Yagarjan sir. Thanks, Jay sir, for having
Thanks,
conducted
Rishi.
the session.
Thanks.